Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being a show is about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and/or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Quantum Leap Season 1, Episode 16. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. This time around, Ben is leaping inside of Liam. Now, I was like, this is kind of a bad situation. It seems like I was wondering if it's going to be like a straight up like sanatorium or something like that. I don't know if there's much of a difference between a sanatorium and an asylum, but either way, I was like, oh, is your own wife kind of putting you in there? Which is obviously, I was curious if that, like, this was kind of like oh man, like she screwing you over type of thing, but it turns out no. Liam is a private investigator and Eileen is, sent him in there to get her sister Judith, who got locked up. Sadly, the person that locked her up was her husband. Quoting those powerful words, hysteria. So especially in the 50s, it's like, oh, that's all it takes to lock a woman up. And it turns out the reason why is because the fact is Judith and her husband kept trying to have babies over and over again, but it never sadly worked out. Kate kept losing the babies over and over again, and she just didn't want to try anymore because it was so painful, but that's what made him, like, lock her up. It's like doing that to someone you love, especially after her not wanting to keep going, considering all that you've lost, and that's very heartbreaking. But yeah. They didn't lean into it as much as I was wondering if they were going to. I mean, it pops up from time to time throughout the episode, but yeah, Ben is talking to someone that isn't there, and I'm like, not the best place to get caught talking to yourself, especially when you're going to be having full-blown conversations. Which I get that, because I have a tendency to do that just in real life, where I just kind of like, I talk to myself, like, out loud when I'm like, working something out or thinking something through. It helps me to say it out loud. So, obviously, once again, in an asylum, it's the worst place to be doing that because it's just going to make you seem crazy. But it turns out the person, obviously, the doctor behind this whole place is not a great person. And the head, I guess, nurse I guess he's more security than anything, is a right douchebag. I guess just straight up, he's just a power-tripping douchebag because he's all about rules and stuff like that. Like, oh, you have assigned seats. The moment Ben sits in the wrong place, he's like, no, this isn't what, did you not understand what I was saying? I was like, geez, you can't just sit somewhere else to talk to someone. And it's all about, like, they didn't really get into it, but it's straight up a power-tripping situation that he's got going on. So, especially because, someone that Ben got to know, like, just for a little bit, Ralph, ended up sticking up for him because he's like, right, I've seen so many people get taken away and they come back with like an emptiness in their eyes. It's like the lights got flipped off. Like, the fact is, that's just what happens in this place. You don't follow the rules. Basically, this place breaks you. And luckily, Judith hasn't gone through she's gone through some of it, but I think not enough to be. Because I think she was playing like maybe she was not all there, but she was like, right, let's meet in the library and talk. But she doesn't want to just escape, even though they do have an escape route, because for her, it's about shutting this, like, stopping the doctor because he's hurting so many people. Because for her, it's like so many people were nice to her and good to her while she was in this place, like someone like Ralph. And so it's like, right, we got to make sure he's never able to do what he's doing. So it isn't just about them escaping, it's about stopping all of this. So. Luckily for Ben, he doesn't have to just rely on just natural detective skills. He has a whole squad of geniuses from the future helping him figure stuff out. So they end up getting him an escape route with Judith, but Martinez shows up, and of course, who's Martinez going to leap into? None other than the douchebag orderly dude. Orderly is probably the right word and not security or whatever, but like you kind of basically follow the same. It kind of still in the same ballpark in this regard, but yeah, of course Martinez would end up in his body, and it's like, oh, it's so interesting too that also like the fact is you would run into each other so quickly because that was only 2 leaps ago that you met, and now it's like, yeah, because there was like a bigger situation between Salvation and the situation on that ship like 2 episodes ago. It's like, yeah, that was a bigger gap, and now that, I wonder, is that supposed to be significant in the regards of it is this close back to back that they're meeting? Like, does that mean like they might run into each other in the next leap as well? It makes me wonder, are they on the same pathing? Like, do they have some of the same leaps? Have they ever like had the same leaps? They just never ran into each other. I don't know, because later on we find out from Ian that it turns out that Sam dealt with evil leapers as well. I was like, interesting. I would have never expected that was a storyline from the original series as well. So that's interesting. So that's, but it's like, right, where Sam was setting things right, which was once wrong, they're setting wrong what was once right. Now, part of me wonders, is this some like timeline purist type of stuff of like, oh, they're evil leapers because Sam is changing time for the better. They're trying to change time either for like, oh, they're part of some larger thing and they're changing time for their own benefit, or is it a situation of, if I had another NBC show, I'm wondering, is it kind of like the Rittenhouse situation in in Timeless? I might have referenced that before, I don't remember. Or is it more like like I said, it's about the purity of the timeline and stuff like that. Kind of like what was it, the Time Masters from, or even the Time Bureau later on. No, they weren't like purists necessarily, I don't think. But like the Time Masters of like DC's Legends of Tomorrow were kind of like that, about keeping the timeline as much the same. So I wonder, is that what their thing is? And at one point I was wondering if that was Martinez's, but we find out later on Martinez leaps the same way Ben does. It's not about setting things wrong, it's about setting things right, because that's the thing Ian couldn't understand. It's like, right, is Martinez really against us? Because every time we've run into Martinez, he's shown to be antagonistic, but at the end of the day, he does help Ben. But Addison was like, yeah, but maybe, who knows? Like, that's always showing up. He's always showing up and revealing himself at the end of the leap. Who's to say that when he's not around Ben, he's not doing something else? But it's like, no, he needs to do the right thing as well. That's why it seems like their missions are the same if they're in the same leap. But once again, it's like, it's something that crosses your mind. Like, have they been on the same pathing? And like I said, do they just not end up working? Like, have they actually been in the same leap and just never crossed path? We've only seen them cross these 3 times. Or are they at different points in the pathing? So some of the places Ben would have gone to with his leaps in the future, have they already been done by Martinez? So would those places get X'd out on the pathing and it sends Ben to the next one he's supposed to go? It makes me wonder. Once again, this is where you like really, really get deep into the science fiction of it all, because that's the conversation of, is it just kind of random? Like, it's all about pathing, because once again, it's about building up speed to get to a very specific point in time, and that's the future. But I'm curious, once again, is the pathing, like, is there a higher power behind the pathing here? Or is it just a situation of, because this whole thing is based on a roadmap. And that was just, like I said, my initial question just was, is Martinez on the exact same roadmap? Or does their roadmap just happen to overlap? I'm leaning more towards the first one of like, it's just, he's just happened to go to different leaps than Ben did or whatever, except for these 3 times or whatever. So, which interestingly enough, they talk to Janice, and Janice reveals that Ben has 3 chances to stop Martinez. Like, Ben has to not save Judith so that he doesn't leap, because it's also about stopping Martinez from leaping as well, because they both leap the same way. And the thing is, Martinez's ultimate goal in the grand scheme of things is to go to a certain point in time and kill Addison. That's the end result. And Ben's plan was to save Addison. So if it meant stopping Martinez by stopping himself, getting stuck in a certain point in time, then so be it. But none of them initially believe her, but for Ben, it's like, I'm willing to sacrifice myself for not just saving Madison, but maybe, I'm going to say Madison, Addison, or just, maybe it's also for the greater good, because you're stopping Martinez in the process as well, but you're also, more so than anything, you're saving your fiance. So, once again, we won't fully know, because we're also only getting Janice's side of things, but, I think it's very poetic that it's like she seemed antagonistic, but now finding out maybe, just maybe, she might be more so on the right side of things. It was also very befitting considering who her father was and what he was to this project, and being that person for Sam too. So it's very befitting in that regard. So I guess because they are Martinez is using the same system as the same leap system, quantum leap system as Ben. I guess that's why he's able to see Addison in the because I think this is the first time they've showcased. Well, because Martinez was never around when Addison was around, so he never it's never come up that he could see her, but it turns out he can. So he's actually here to help Judith, and Addison's the one that convinced him, like, right, you're going to help Ben. Like, the fact of the matter is, she's like, right, I've trained people to go in, and there are situations where brute force is necessary, but she's also like, I know what it means to gather intelligence, and you on your own, Ziggy says you won't be able to complete this on your own, so you need to work with Ben, who ended up getting captured by the doctor, and Judith is getting prepped for a lobotomy, and Ben was put up in the life jackets. I mean, I said life jacket, straight jacket. So the two former enemies, well, still enemies, have to work together in this regard to both be able to leap. So luckily, they were able to save Judith, and they also got the doctor's files. So now they're able to, stop him. And Elaine gets there, and she drives off with her sister. Problem is, Martinez stabs Ben trying to kill him, because it's like, hey, you are like, that's why he was like, don't get in my way, because he knows that what Ben's ultimately trying to do is save Addison's life, because he's like, my mission is this, which is so interesting, because I wonder, does he not know that they know what his mission is in the long run? Well, once again, we don't know the full scope of it. Once again, killing Addison might be a byproduct of what he's ultimately trying to do, or maybe it is the main thing, but he's like, right, I'm trying to stop something, and you don't realize I'm on the right side of things. I've been given my orders, because he's a loyal soldier. He follows. It's the thing of, you kind of aren't supposed to question your orders. You can get in trouble for that. So you have to follow them through and through. And obviously we kind of saw that with the whole situation with Addison's dad like 2 episodes ago. So, but obviously we also saw how that played out when they kind of stood up to their commanding officer in that regard, because he was in the wrong. So there is a time but he probably thinks like, no, I'm doing the right thing. I'm on a righteous mission that my government has given me. Like, I'm saving lives in the process. So some stuff later on kind of makes you wonder if there's a lot more at play here, but we'll get to that in a second. So, but that's brutal. Like, Ben's dying, because it's like, right, the leap hasn't happened yet, because the leap doesn't happen until Eileen and Judith get across like the bridge and escape fully. So Ben's got like 5 minutes before they cross the bridge, and he's dying. And obviously Addison, as a hologram, can't do anything. But Magic talked to her, like, you led people to be able to, fight through their situations, even when you weren't there. And so she pushes Ben to like, no, get up. You have to climb that ladder. He does. He makes it to a car, uses the cigarette lighter to God, I don't even know what those are called. Isn't that what those are? Not cigarette lighters, aren't they? Cigar lighters, or whatever, the thing you heat up and then put on his neck, and he cauterized the wound, but still lost quite a bit of blood. And luckily, some nurses were walking by. He was able to honk the horn. So I was about to say that actually sucks if, like, hey, you get to leap, but then you still leave Liam there to end up dying. But luckily, we find out later on, okay, everything worked out. Judith moved in with her sister Eileen. She was able to adopt a child. Luckily, Liam survived and continued to have a really good career as a PI, and the doc lost his license, was never able to do what he was doing again. So, because when in the heart of everything present day, there's a conversation about this being a war, and Janice is about winning that war. It's like, right, you might win the battle, but you've lost. You can't afford to lose the war. So she was just like, right, sacrifices have to be made. But Magic, it's like, no, I made a promise to your dad when I picked up this project that I would never let, someone, I would do my best to help everyone, like that we wouldn't lose anyone. And he wanted to keep that promise. It's like, right, we do good here. We help people. We make sure that no one dies. Like we keep this going as, without, this isn't about sacrifice, you know? And luckily it all works out in the end. But Magic has to convince Janice, like, no, we have to work together. Like, you want us to keep you up to date about everything. Because for her, it's like, she knows the roadmap. That's why she was so upset that Magic kept her out of the loop. Because this was the third and last opportunity to stop Martinez. Because I guess with the pathing, this is the only So that's why I was wondering too, like, oh, with the time frame between them getting closer and closer, like, make it so they run into each other again. But once again, I'm forgetting the whole point of this. Janice was saying this was the last time Ben would be able to stop Martinez before he's able to reach his goal. Maybe if he doesn't reach his goal, like, if things worked out and he didn't reach his goal, maybe there could be a situation where they end up meeting again, but that would be like post his goal, and who knows what reaching his goal will mean in the long run for like Ben's circumstances, like whether it'll kind of undo what he's doing in some shape or form. Once again, we don't know the full scope of everything, but Janice ended up saying, like, right, what I'm about to tell you, I didn't want anyone to hear, but like I told you before, I didn't know who to trust because there is a mole inside of Quantum Leap. And she believes, she's like, because of something Ian said, I believe I figured it out. I was like, are we going to find out it's Jen because Jen's not there? It's like, no, the mole is Ziggy. And it's like, okay, so now I'm like, because I think I posited this like a last episode or maybe episode before. I was like, oh, it'd be interesting if like Ziggy became like a conscience on his own. I remember because I specifically referenced, like, I made a Doctor Who reference about when the TARDIS was like able to be in a body and like physically like talk to the Doctor and stuff, you know. Once again, it's like, oh, you didn't steal me, I stole me a Time Lord. I made that whole reference, right? So now I'm wondering, like, is that what's happening? Is Ziggy becoming sentient? And is that what this whole Martinez thing is about? Is it because, oh, I need to stop Ben from changing time? Because it's like, does Ziggy see the end game of like, right, you do good, but the choice of doing all this good and changing time is having a certain effect where now Ziggy might be on some Ultron level stuff of like, no, we need to keep the time frame a certain way because the end result is better in the long run, or what? So Martinez is being led by the government, who is taking like suggestions from Ziggy, but maybe by that point Ziggy is kind of rogue AI type of situation, maybe. Or it could just be like Ziggy has a virus or something, like someone's infected Ziggy and is kind of manipulating this, like a Rittenhouse type of situation. I don't know. It'd be more interesting, in my opinion, like, not if it was more like rogue AI type of situation. I'm just like, I mean, we might be going down the Terminator route. That is the more apt description to use, considering we are dealing with an AI and, well, it's a, I think Zig is considered an AI, but yeah, an AI and time travel situation. So, I mean, obviously, Legends of Tomorrow falls into that same regard. I kept making references to Doctor Who. It's like, there's also a more recent reference too. I mean, it's obviously in the Doctor Who vein, is the whole Legends of Tomorrow situation, spoilers, with Gideon. So it's like, yeah, even though I didn't even think about that. So I'm curious to see what that means in the long run, because it's like, wait, Ziggy's a mole? What does that mean in the grand scheme of things? We'll ultimately have to wait to see what that all turns out to be. I'm very excited to see what happens. I think there's only 18 episodes this season. I say that a lot, where I'm like, oh, I'm so certain. It's like, I don't know. Because I know this season was expanded longer than it, like, NBC ordered more episodes for it. So I think it is like 18 episodes. Like the first season of Manifest was in the same situation and went up to 18 episodes. So I think we might only have 2 episodes left. We'll see after next week's episode whether the next episode's the season finale or not. But we'll see whether or not episode 18 is the season finale. You know what I'm saying? But either way, I'm very, very excited to see where all of this ends up taking us, because the whole Ziggy reveal, we never found out what Ben's next leap is. So that's going to be interesting to find out what that is and what happens next. So I wonder, will it all come down to the season finale with Martinez? And you'd assume so, just because of everything. So once again, we have no idea, like, in the time frame it takes Ben to do one leap. We have no idea how long it takes Martinez, because Martinez is about going about things the forceful way. Ben's got the team behind him. He's handling things a more tactful way, but, you know, we'll see. So Martinez might get to his goal faster than Ben can go through some of his leaps. So, like I said, we'll ultimately have to wait and see. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.